Princess, I'm sorry I didn't know you were here.
What's your name?
Kato.
The princess who fell in love with a poor hunter. An African love story. The Kingdom of Okemiri. Long ago, in the fertile lands of the Kingdom of Okemiri, there ruled a powerful king named King Okemiri. King Okemiri was a respected ruler. His kingdom was known for rich farms, skilled warriors, and wise elders. Many neighboring kingdoms admired his strength and leadership. But King Okemiri had only one child, Princess Olaedo. Princess Olaedo was known throughout the kingdom for her grace, intelligence, and kindness. Unlike many royal daughters who preferred palace life, Olaedo loved spending time among the villagers. She listened to their stories, helped the poor, and often walked beyond the palace walls. But King Okemiri had already decided something about his daughter's future. One day, she would marry a powerful prince who could strengthen the kingdom. He had no idea that fate had already chosen someone very different, the poor hunter. Near the great forest lived a young hunter named Kato. Kato owned almost nothing. His small hut stood at the edge of the forest, built from clay and thatch. Every day before sunrise, he entered the forest with only his bow, arrows, and courage. But though he was poor, the villagers respected him deeply. Kato shared his food with widows and helped the elderly gather firewood. People often said, "Some men have gold in their houses, but Kato has gold in his heart." The first encounter. One afternoon, Princess Olaedo decided to visit the village market with her attendants. After leaving the busy market, she felt drawn toward the quiet forest nearby. As she walked beneath the tall trees, a sudden sound broke the silence. Whoosh! An arrow flew through the air. A deer collapsed near the path. Startled, Olaedo turned. A young man stepped from behind the trees, Kato. When he realized who she was, he quickly bowed. "My princess, forgive me. I did not know anyone was nearby." But instead of anger, Olaedo felt curiosity. She had never seen someone hunt with such skill before. "What is your name?" she asked. "Kato," he replied. That moment was the beginning of a story neither of them expected. Friendship in secret. Over the following weeks, Princess Olaedo returned to the forest many times. Sometimes with excuses, sometimes secretly. Each time she met Kato. They spoke about many things. Kato told her about the dangers of the forest, the habits of animals, and the struggles of the villagers. Olaedo told him about palace life, royal duties, and the loneliness of living inside high walls. Their worlds were completely different, but their hearts slowly grew closer. What began as friendship slowly turned into love. The arrival of the suitors. Meanwhile, news spread that Princess Olaedo would soon choose a husband. Suitors began arriving from many kingdoms. Some came with gifts of gold. Others came with powerful warriors to display their strength. Among them was the most confident of all, Prince Zuberi. Prince Zuberi was wealthy, handsome, and extremely proud. He believed the princess would certainly choose him. Whenever he spoke to Olaedo, he boasted about his riches and his armies. But Olaedo felt nothing for him. Her heart belonged to someone else. The king's guard discovers the secret. For many weeks, Princess Olaedo continued visiting the forest. She always told the palace guards she was going to the market or to pray at the shrine near the village. But one of the king's most loyal guards, Captain Damba, began to notice something unusual. The princess often dismissed most of the guards before walking deeper toward the forest. Captain Damba became suspicious. One afternoon, he quietly followed her from a distance, careful not to be seen. The deeper she walked into the forest, the more curious he became. Then suddenly, he saw something that shocked him. Princess Olaedo was not alone. Standing before her was Kato, the poor hunter. The princess smiled at him with warmth and affection. The two spoke softly, laughing and walking together among the trees. Captain Damba watched silently from behind a thick tree. His heart grew heavy. He knew this secret could shake the kingdom. That evening, after much hesitation, he went to the palace. He knelt before King Okemiri. "My king, forgive me for what I must say." The king frowned. "What is it?" The guard lowered his head. "My king, Princess Olaedo has been meeting a young hunter in the forest." The palace fell silent. The king's fury. King Okemiri's face darkened with anger. "A hunter?" he thundered. "My daughter, meeting a hunter in secret?" Immediately, he ordered his guards, "Bring this man to the palace at once." Within hours, Kato was brought before the royal court. The palace hall was filled with chiefs, elders, warriors, and visiting princes. Among them stood Prince Zuberi, watching carefully. King Okemiri stared at the young hunter with piercing eyes. "So, you are the man who believes he can steal the heart of a princess?" Kato stood calmly. He bowed respectfully, but did not tremble. "My king, I did not seek to disrespect your house." "Then why do you meet my daughter in secret?" the king demanded. Kato answered honestly, "Because I love her." A loud murmur spread through the court. Many could not believe the courage of the poor hunter. Prince Zuberi smiled slightly, confident that the hunter's fate was sealed. King Okemiri leaned forward on his throne. "You claim to love my daughter, yet you are a man with nothing." He paused. Then he spoke slowly. "If you truly believe you are worthy of her, then prove it." The three impossible trials. The king rose from his throne and addressed the entire court. "This hunter will face 3 trials." The court grew silent. "First," the king declared, "he must enter the great forest and return with the golden horn of the great forest buffalo." Gasps filled the hall. The beast was legendary, huge, violent, and almost impossible to kill. "Second," the king continued, "he must cross the River of Spirits and bring back the sacred crystal stone that lies beyond the river." The elders exchanged uneasy looks. The river was feared by the entire kingdom. "Third," the king finished, "he must defeat General Jabari, the strongest warrior in this kingdom." Prince Zuberi folded his arms confidently. These tasks would surely destroy the hunter. But Kato stepped forward. "For Princess Olaedo, I will face every trial." Princess Olaedo watched helplessly, her heart filled with fear. The hunt for the great forest buffalo. At sunrise the next day, Kato entered the great forest. For 3 days he tracked the legendary buffalo. The forest was thick and dangerous. Broken branches, giant footprints, and deep hoof marks showed the beast had passed through. Finally, on the 4th day, Kato saw it. The great forest buffalo stood beside a muddy clearing. It was enormous. Its horns curved like giant blades. When the animal noticed Kato, it let out a terrifying roar and charged. Kato barely escaped the first attack. For hours, the hunter tried to outsmart the beast. But the buffalo was relentless. At one moment, it nearly crushed him against a fallen tree. Another time, it chased him across a rocky slope. Kato realized something terrible. This was not an ordinary animal. The beast seemed almost unnaturally cunning, as if some spirit protected it. Days passed. Back in the kingdom, people began to whisper, "He is dead." Even King Okemiri began to believe the hunter had been killed. Prince Zuberi smiled quietly. Meanwhile, Princess Olaedo could not sleep. Each night she cried, fearing her beloved had died in the forest. Villagers began spreading rumors. The forest has taken him. But deep inside the wilderness, Kato was still fighting. On the 7th day, the buffalo charged again. This time, Kato climbed onto a large rock. When the beast rushed forward, he fired one final arrow directly into its heart. The buffalo collapsed with a thunderous fall. Exhausted, wounded, and covered in dust, Kato cut off the golden horn, the River of Spirits, the terrible fall. After completing the first trial and returning with the golden horn of the great forest buffalo, Kato did not rest for long. The second trial awaited him, He had to cross the feared River of Spirits and bring back the sacred crystal stone, a treasure said to lie in a hidden cave beyond the river. Many people believed the river was cursed. Travelers who attempted to cross it rarely returned. Still, Kato prepared himself and began the journey. When he finally reached the riverbank, a thick mist covered the water. The air was strangely cold. The tall trees around the river bent in the wind, as if warning him to turn back. But Kato thought of Princess Olaedo. He remembered the tears in her eyes when he left the palace. "I will return," he had promised her. Using logs and strong vines, Kato built a small raft. He pushed it slowly into the dark water and climbed aboard. For a while, the river remained calm. But halfway across, the water suddenly began to move violently. The wind roared through the mist. Huge waves slammed against the fragile raft. Kato struggled to hold the wooden poles together. Then suddenly, crack! Something powerful struck the raft from beneath the water. The wood split apart instantly. Before Kato could react, the raft broke into pieces. He fell straight into the freezing river. The current dragged him downward. He tried to swim, but the river pulled him deeper and deeper. Soon, the dark water swallowed him completely. And then, Kato disappeared beneath the surface. Rumors spread across the kingdom. Days passed, but Kato did not return. In the villages, people began whispering, "The river has taken him. No one survives the River of Spirits." Even the palace servants began repeating the rumors. When the news reached Princess Olaedo, her heart nearly broke. She refused to believe it. Every evening she walked to the palace balcony that overlooked the distant forest.
She stared toward the direction of the river, hoping to see the hunter return. But the path remained empty. King Okemiri also heard the rumors. Though he had challenged the hunter, the king had not truly wished for the young man's death. Still, the king believed the trial had likely ended Kato's journey. Meanwhile, far away in his own kingdom, Prince Zuberi received word from traveling merchants. They spoke of the hunter who had dared to challenge King Okemiri's trials. They also spoke of the terrifying river. Prince Zuberi listened calmly. "The river will finish what the forest could not," he said confidently. In his mind, the future remained certain. Sooner or later, Princess Olaedo would become his bride. Beneath the river goddess. But the truth of what happened beneath the river was far more mysterious. When Kato sank into the dark water, his strength slowly faded. The powerful current pulled him deeper into the river's depths. His lungs burned. His vision blurred. Soon everything became dark. But suddenly, a soft light appeared beneath the water. The light grew brighter until the entire riverbed glowed. From the glowing water emerged a majestic figure. It was the river goddess, the ancient guardian of the River of Spirits. Her voice flowed like the gentle current of the river. She looked at the unconscious hunter drifting in the water. "This one fights not for pride," she whispered. "He fights for love." With a wave of her hand, the violent current stopped. She lifted Kato gently from the water and carried him to a hidden cave beneath the river. When Kato finally opened his eyes, he found himself lying on smooth stones. Before him stood the glowing figure. "Am I dead?" he asked weakly. The goddess smiled. "No, brave hunter. The river nearly claimed you, but your courage has touched the spirit of these waters." She pointed toward a glowing stone resting on a natural pedestal. "That is the sacred crystal stone you seek." Kato stared at the treasure in amazement. "But why save me?" he asked. The goddess answered softly. "Because the river honors those who risk everything for love." The return. No one expected. Several days later, something extraordinary happened. At the gates of King Okemiri's palace, a tired and muddy traveler slowly approached. The guards looked carefully. Then their eyes widened in shock. It was Kato. He was wounded, exhausted, and covered in dried river mud. But in his hand, he carried the glowing sacred crystal stone. News spread quickly through the kingdom. "The hunter lives!" He crossed the River of Spirits. When Princess Olaedo heard the news, tears filled her eyes. The man everyone believed was dead had returned. And now only one final trial remained. The battle with General Jabari, the strongest warrior in the kingdom. Would the hunter truly survive one last challenge, or would fate still separate the two lovers? The entire kingdom waited for the final answer, a kingdom in shock. When the palace guards announced that Kato had returned, the entire kingdom was thrown into disbelief. People rushed toward the palace courtyard. Some villagers who had mourned him days earlier could hardly believe their eyes. It is him. The river did not take him. Kato walked slowly through the palace gates. His clothes were torn. His face carried signs of exhaustion. But in his hand, shining under the sunlight, was the sacred crystal stone. The glowing treasure proved beyond doubt that he had crossed the dreaded River of Spirits. When King Okemiri saw the crystal, his expression changed. For the first time since the trials began, the king looked at the poor hunter not with anger, but with deep curiosity. Few men in history had survived even one of the challenges Kato had completed. Now he had survived two. Olaedo's tears turned to hope. Inside the palace, Princess Olaedo could hardly breathe when she heard the news. For days she had believed the worst. The rumors had been everywhere. Kato is gone. The river has claimed him. She had cried many nights, fearing that her love had died because of the king's challenge. But now the hunter stood alive inside the palace. When their eyes met across the courtyard, the world around them seemed to disappear. Olaedo's eyes filled with tears again. But this time they were tears of joy. Still, the danger was not over. One final trial remained. News travels to Prince Zuberi. Meanwhile, far away in his own kingdom, Prince Zuberi sat confidently in his royal hall. For weeks he had been hearing stories about the hunter, who challenged the king's trials, but he had remained calm. "The forest will finish him," he had once said. Then merchants arrived with new rumors. The hunter survived the forest. Zuberi had only smiled. Later, another traveler brought more news. The hunter attempted to cross the River of Spirits. Zuberi had been certain the river would destroy him. But now another messenger arrived, breathless from the road. "My prince, the hunter lives." Zuberi's expression hardened. He returned with the sacred crystal stone. For the first time, Prince Zuberi felt a shadow of concern. Only one trial remained, and if the hunter survived it, the princess would belong to him. The final trial is announced. Back in the kingdom of Umueri, the royal court gathered once more. Chiefs, elders, warriors, and villagers filled the palace arena. King Okemiri rose slowly from his throne. The entire crowd fell silent. "The hunter has completed 2 trials," the king announced. But one final test remains. He turned toward the arena entrance. "Bring forth General Jabari." The ground seemed to tremble as the giant warrior stepped forward. General Jabari was feared across many lands. He had defeated countless fighters. His strength alone had protected the kingdom during wars. Many warriors whispered quietly among themselves, "No man has defeated Jabari. If the hunter must face him, then this is the end." Princess Olaedo felt fear tighten in her chest. This final trial might be the most dangerous of all, the night before the battle. That night, the palace and the village were filled with anxious whispers. People gathered around fires discussing the coming fight. Some believed Kato had already performed miracles. Others believed the final battle would be impossible. How can a hunter defeat a warrior like Jabari? Meanwhile, Princess Olaedo stood alone in the palace garden. The moonlight covered the quiet courtyard. Kato approached slowly. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Olaedo whispered softly, "You have already faced death twice. You do not have to fight him." But Kato shook his head gently. "If I stop now, everything I fought for will be lost." He looked into her eyes. "I promised I would return, and tomorrow I will fight for that promise." The night wind moved quietly through the trees. Neither of them knew what the next day would bring. The arena of destiny. The next morning, the entire kingdom gathered inside the royal arena. Thousands of people filled the stands. The air buzzed with excitement and fear. At one end of the arena stood General Jabari, holding his heavy weapon. At the other end stood Kato, the poor hunter who had already defied death twice. King Okemiri raised his hand. "This final trial will decide everything. If the hunter wins, he shall marry Princess Olaedo. If he loses, the trials end here." The crowd fell silent. Dust drifted across the arena floor. The two men slowly began to move toward each other. The final battle had begun. The battle begins. The arena was silent. Thousands of eyes watched the two men standing opposite each other. On one side stood General Jabari, the greatest warrior of King Okemiri's army. His tall frame, broad shoulders, and battle scars told the story of many wars. On the other side stood Kato, the poor hunter who had survived the forest and the River of Spirits. The difference between them was obvious. Jabari was larger, stronger, and trained in combat since childhood. Kato had only his courage and the skills he learned from surviving in the wild. King Okemiri raised his hand. "When the drum sounds," he declared, "the final trial begins." A large drum stood beside the arena. The drummer lifted his stick. Boom! The sound echoed across the arena. The battle had begun. The warrior's strength. Jabari moved first. With terrifying speed, the giant warrior charged forward. His heavy weapon swung through the air with tremendous force. Kato jumped aside just in time. The weapon struck the ground, sending dust flying everywhere. The crowd gasped. Another swing followed, then another. Jabari attacked again and again, each strike powerful enough to break bones. Kato dodged, rolled, and moved quickly across the arena floor. But the hunter knew something dangerous. He could not keep avoiding the attacks forever. The warrior was stronger and more experienced. If the fight continued like this, exhaustion would eventually defeat him. In the royal stand, Princess Olaedo's hands trembled. Each time Jabari's weapon came close to Kato, her heart nearly stopped. The hunter falls. After several intense minutes, Jabari finally landed a powerful strike. His weapon slammed against Kato's side. The hunter was thrown across the arena floor. The crowd cried out in shock. Kato struggled to stand. Pain shot through his body. Across the arena, Jabari slowly approached him. The giant warrior raised his weapon once more. Many spectators began whispering, "It is over. The hunter cannot survive another strike." Even King Okemiri leaned forward on his throne. For a moment, the king wondered if he had pushed the young man too far, but Kato forced himself to stand again. His legs shook, yet he refused to fall. The courage of the hunter. As Jabari prepared another powerful attack, something unexpected happened. Instead of running away, Kato moved forward. The crowd gasped. The hunter rushed directly toward the giant warrior. Jabari swung his weapon with full force. But at the last moment, Kato stepped aside and grabbed the warrior's arm. Using the speed and balance he had learned from years of hunting in the forest, Kato twisted Jabari's arm sharply. The heavy weapon slipped from Jabari's hand and crashed onto the arena floor. For a brief moment, the arena froze. No one moved. No one spoke. The strongest warrior in the kingdom now stood unarmed. Silence before the decision. Dust slowly settled across the arena. Kato stepped back, breathing heavily. Jabari looked at the fallen weapon. Then he looked at the hunter. For a long moment, the giant warrior said nothing. Then suddenly, Jabari raised both hands. "I yield," he declared loudly. The entire arena erupted. Cheers, shouts, and drums filled the air. The impossible had happened. The poor hunter had defeated the kingdom's greatest warrior. The king's realization. King Okemiri slowly rose from his throne. The celebration quieted. Everyone waited for the king's decision. The king looked at Kato carefully. The hunter stood wounded and exhausted, yet still strong. This was no ordinary man. King Okemiri then turned toward his daughter. Princess Olaedo's face was filled with hope and tears. For a long moment, the king remained silent. Then he finally spoke. "When I gave these trials," the king said, "I believed no man could complete them. But this hunter has faced the forest, the river, and the strongest warrior in my kingdom." The king paused. Then he looked directly at Kato. "You have shown courage, honor, and determination. You have proven yourself worthy." The kingdom celebrates. A wave of joy spread through the arena. The villagers cheered loudly. The palace drums began to beat in celebration. Princess Olaedo rushed down from the royal stand. For the first time since the trials began, she stood beside Kato openly before the entire kingdom. King Okemiri looked at them both. At that moment, he understood something important. True strength was not always found in wealth, armies, or royal blood. Sometimes it was found in the courage of a simple man who refused to give up. The royal wedding. The kingdom prepared for a celebration greater than any before. For 7 days and 7 nights, the people danced, sang, and shared food. Villagers, chiefs, warriors, and travelers all gathered to witness the wedding. Princess Olaedo and Kato were married in a grand ceremony in the palace courtyard. King Okemiri himself placed his blessing upon them, and across the land, people told the story of the hunter, who dared to challenge impossible trials for the woman he loved. Final message of the story. From that day forward, the people remembered a simple truth. A person's true worth is not measured by wealth, power, or royal birth, but by courage, loyalty, and the strength of the heart. And that is how the poor hunter and the princess changed the story of a kingdom forever.